Welcome to the final part of our 4-part series, where we are commemorating the fall season by building this pumpkin pie spice jar. I can practically smell the spice in the air at this point. Let's wrap up the design of the cap with a living hinge, threads, and the perforated top. So let's do a simple extrusion for our living hinge, sketching the profile on the right plane. Under the line tool, there's an option to draw a midpoint line, so let's use that to start our sketch. I'll make sure the midpoint is vertical to the endpoints of our previous sketch. And dimension it to lie 0.08 of an inch below the parting line of the lid, and we'll jut it into the side of each lid component 0.20 of an inch. Complete the sketch with a few vertical lines and a 3-point arc that is tangent to the vertical lines. Exit the sketch and enter the Extruded Boss tool. Under Direction 1, select the mid-plane option, and we'll make this a 0.325 inch extrusion. Now we're ready to add the thread to the inside of this cap, which matches the thread on the neck of the jar. Navigate to Insert, Features, Thread, and select the bottom inside edge of the cap. Change this to an extruded thread, and we'll offset the start of this thread from the bottom of the cap 0.08 inches. Our number of revolutions looks good at 1.25, and we'll adjust the pitch to 0.175 inches to match the thread on the neck of the jar. Lastly, you have the option to adjust the start angle of the thread here. I'll adjust this to 105 degrees, which drops this thread perfectly in line with the mating thread on the jar. Just like we did with the other thread, we can slightly adjust our profile shape. Let's change the tip thickness to 0.03 inches and the profile height to 0.08 inches. Just remember to hit this little traffic light symbol at the top of the SOLIDWORKS window to rebuild and allow the changes to take effect. Now we need to taper the start and finish of the thread, so we'll use the same boundary tool technique we used on the first thread. In the 3D sketch environment, use the Spline on Surface tool to sketch a spline that is coincident and tangent to the helical edges where the thread meets the inside face of the cap. Dimension each handle to 3/4 of an inch and draw a line to enclose the sketch. Last time we did this, we also created a profile sketch on the face of the thread, but this time in the boundary tool, I'll show you that you can just use the model faces as a profile. So we'll select this face and then the profile sketch we just created. And with face 1 selected in the Direction 1 box, let's make the start of this boundary tangent to the thread faces and click the green check mark. Now every once in a while, when building complex boundaries, you'll get an error like this, where the newly generated body has failed to merge to the part. This usually happens when you have complex curved faces trying to mate, as with the face made from the spline sketch we created. Or maybe they don't overlap perfectly, or they aren't perfectly mated across the entire face. But there's a simple workaround if you get this error. Let's deselect the Merge Result option to generate this boundary as its own body. I'll hide the cap body and under the Surface tab in the Command Manager enter the Offset Surface tool. This is the surface we are having trouble mating to the inside surface of the cap, so we just need to thicken it up a bit. So let's copy this surface by applying a 0 offset. Then enter the Thicken tool and select our newly created surface to thicken it a bit. We'll do 0.05 of an inch here. Now try combining the newly generated body to the part and you should be good to go. So I'll just repeat those operations for the end of the thread and I'll catch you on the other side. Now let's blend this thread in with a 0.15 of an inch radius fillet all around. To wrap up the cap design, let's add the perforations to the top using a unique patterning tool. I'll first create a seed feature to pattern. On this top face, sketch a 1/8 inch diameter circle whose center point is on the origin. We'll do an extruded cut with the up to next option selected, which, as the name suggests, applies the cut up to the next parallel surface. Now let's use this cut feature to create a fill pattern. This tool can be found in the drop-down under linear pattern. Once in the fill pattern property manager, we'll first select a face that will act as our fill boundary. Under pattern layout, you can choose from what's called a perforation layout, or you can choose a circular layout, a square layout, or a polygon layout. Let's do a perforation layout. And with this option, you can control the spacing between each instance of the pattern. You can control the angle of how the instances are staggered, and you can edit the thickness of the outer margins. For pattern direction, we need to choose either a linear edge or a sketch line. In this case, I'll use the horizontal line we sketched earlier for rotating the flip lid into place. Lastly, select the feature or body you'd like to pattern, in this case the extruded cut feature. With the preview on, you can play with the instance spacing and stagger angle to come to the pattern you're happy with. This looks good here, so I'll hit OK to complete the pattern. And there we have our completed lid design. Now let's give the spice jar a few final touches. I'll apply a medium gloss plastic appearance to the cap. And we'll stick with the fall theme by changing the color of the cap to orange. Now let's make the jar transparent with a thick gloss glass appearance. Lastly, let's add a decal to the label area we created earlier in the series. The easiest way to add a custom decal is to first apply one of the default decals. So I'll just drag this registered trademark decal to the face I'd like the label to be applied. And in the Decals Property Manager, I'll browse to select a different image file path. And here I've created a custom pumpkin pie spice label. The registered trademark image had a mask, so we can just turn that off. And under the Mapping tab, let's change the mapping from cylindrical to label. And lastly, I'll just manually adjust the label to fit inside our label frame. That looks pretty great right there. So there we have it, SOLIDWORKS users, our custom spice jar. Now go stuff your face with all your favorite fall foods and just make sure to save room for pie. Thanks for watching.